Most people eventually start questioning why the results in their lives seem to follow the same pattern. They want to earn more, yet their income stays flat. They want their relationships to feel more balanced, more fulfilling, more secure, but the same roles, reactions, and emotional cycles keep repeating. They hope to feel freer, yet notice that their days flow past as near identical copies of one another, shaped by the same responsibilities, the same decisions, and the same limited range of movement. All of these repetitions continue quietly within a mental structure that operates independently of desire, remains unquestioned precisely because it goes unnoticed, and produces outcomes automatically, without asking for permission or explanation. This is where the real knot begins to form. The issue is not that people don't know what to do. The issue is that they have never truly questioned whether repeating, limiting, or unsatisfying results have to continue in the same way at all, or whether a different internal ground, one capable of producing different outcomes, is even possible. When similar results keep appearing in certain areas of your life, this is not a judgment about your worth or your identity. It is a signal, a visible indicator of how the mental system operating within you works, often without your awareness. At this exact point, the concept of a paradigm comes into view, the idea that allows us to name this unseen mental structure that produces results, and in doing so, makes the entire picture coherent. A paradigm is not defined by what a person consciously thinks, but by what they consistently move toward in daily life, what they postpone, which risks they instinctively avoid, and what they quietly label as possible or impossible. It is an established mental program that shapes these decisions, automatic reactions, and repeating choices through perceptual filters and habitual responses, often without conscious awareness, and in doing so, it draws the boundaries of what feels available or allowed. Most people believe they are directing their lives through conscious choices and that their decisions are made freely by will. In reality, the majority of decisions arise as the automatic continuation of habits and learned responses that were formed through repetition in the past. Unless this automatic operation is noticed and brought into conscious awareness, it does not renew itself, and a system running on the same mental structure will continue to produce the same results, even when new goals or intentions are added on top of it. This is why some people remain in the same place for long periods of time, despite putting in effort, trying hard, and acting with good intentions. They don't feel a meaningful sense of progress in their lives. The steps they take don't produce the results they expect, and the outcomes continue to surprise them. Within this experience, it becomes almost inevitable to interpret what's happening as a personal failure and to ask again and again, "I don't understand." Despite all this effort, all this trying, all this intention to do the right thing, why does the same thing keep happening? Because a paradigm does not explain the results it produces, nor does it try to convince or inform you. It operates quietly in the background, continuing to run the familiar order exactly as it is. This process unfolds largely within the subconscious mind, meaning it functions without your awareness, often without your ability to intervene, question it, or even pause long enough to reassess. And this is precisely why, when results don't change, the conscious mind goes searching for reasons, while the true source continues to operate much deeper at an automatic level. At this point, a critical distinction becomes clear. Everyone looks at results, but very few people can recognize the mental level from which those results are being produced. Some individuals appear remarkably successful in life. They move in the direction they want and generate outcomes that align with their desires. Yet they cannot clearly explain how they do it. This is because even without consciously managing the process, they are operating in harmony with a mental structure that supports what they want. This state, producing favorable results without knowing exactly what one is doing right, is often referred to as unconscious competence. Others, however, cannot clearly understand why they aren't progressing, why they remain stuck in the same places, or why their efforts don't seem to pay off. Like everyone else, they live and make decisions within a paradigm. But in this case, that mental structure tends to preserve what feels safe and familiar, framing anything beyond habitual results as uncertain or risky. As a result, it draws limits, narrows the range of action, and restricts the sense of what is possible. Living under the influence of this limiting process without being aware of it is what is known as unconscious incompetence. At this point, something needs to be made clear. Of course, socioeconomic inequalities exist. People begin life under different conditions, with real differences in access and opportunity. Not everyone starts from the same place. However, the distinction being made here is not about where someone begins, but about why people who live within similar conditions and similar limits begin to produce different results over time. At the root of this difference lies whether a person becomes aware of the mental system they are operating within, and how they respond to it once it is recognized. What creates the difference is not external circumstances or personal traits, but whether a person becomes aware of the established mental structure that governs automatic reactions and choices, and that causes familiar results to be accepted as normal. This moment of awareness recalibrates the line between thought, perception, and response, aligning a person's mental frequency with the kinds of outcomes they can naturally engage with and receive. That alignment takes place as perception begins to notice different things. Responses start flowing in new directions, and repeating choices begin forming on a different internal ground. Because a goal is never stronger than the paradigm within which it operates, the paradigm quietly decides in advance which goals feel safe, which feel risky, and which feel like too much. This is not accidental. The human mind evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to reduce uncertainty, preserve what is familiar, and conserve energy in the service of survival. In the past, this mental structure functioned as a protective mechanism, treating expansion, visibility, or movement beyond familiar boundaries as potential physical threats. Today, even in the absence of real danger, the same mechanism continues to operate at a psychological level. It labels the familiar as safe, suppresses goals that fall outside that comfort zone, and keeps the individual, often without their awareness, circulating within the same familiar results. Many people define their goal as getting out of debt. Yet this framing quietly keeps the mind centered on the theme of debt itself. The mind does not organize itself around what should not exist. It operates according to the mental structure it is focused on, and it produces results that match that structure. For this reason, transformation does not come from concentrating on debt, but from moving long-established perceptions into a broader mental framework. Results only begin to change when that new framework becomes a person's internal sense of what is normal. Results do not reflect what you say you want or what you consciously desire. They clearly reveal where your life has become stabilized, at the level you have grown accustomed to, accepted without question, and come to experience as normal. The repeating results in your life reveal themselves through a single question. How familiar, how habitual, and how deeply accepted is this level of living for you on the inside? A paradigm does not change through motivation, intense desire, or increased effort, because these approaches do not reach the structure itself. They only affect the reactions produced within it. A paradigm begins to loosen and transform only when its operation becomes visible, when a person truly recognizes the system they are living within. For this reason, this narration is not offering you a new method or a set of steps to apply. The point is to move into a field of awareness where the system already in operation can be seen more clearly and unmistakably. The only thing required is to clearly see the mental ground you are operating from, the familiar thought-reaction pathways through which you make choices, and the precise place from which your results are being generated. The works shared on this channel come together to help the mental structure be seen from different angles and to allow awareness to deepen over time. My aim is not so much to teach, but to accompany people as they see their own mental ground clearly in a calm and safe space. A person often assumes, especially when acting with good intentions and sincere effort, that they are fully in control of their life. Yet in the flow of everyday living, they rarely notice that their decisions and reactions follow a largely habitual track, simply because they have never questioned where the script is actually being written. The results that appear do not judge or blame you. They simply reveal with clarity what has become familiar and normal for you within the system you are living in. This awareness can feel unsettling at first, yet for that very reason, it opens a liberating door, because it allows responsibility to be approached with clarity rather than guilt. When you truly see this system, you begin to understand on your own that the results you've been living with are not fate or necessity, and that staying on the same track is not an obligation, but a changeable habit. Life is not shaped by an accumulation of coincidences, but by the continuity of mental structures that operate without awareness. The flow of what you experience is, to a great extent, the natural result of which system is running on the inside. And as you begin to see clearly which mental structure you are living within, you also recognize with equal clarity that the results you once assumed were inevitable are not fixed at all, but capable of changing through awareness. This video is not here to deliver a final, all-encompassing answer. It exists as a starting point where attention begins to shift from results to the mental ground that produces them, and where that recognition, once genuinely seen, turns into a process that continues to operate on its own. And this is where change actually begins, not by forcing things or adding new actions, but at the moment you clearly see this operation and realize that you are no longer moving from the same mental structure, the same automatic reactions, or the same familiar line of perception that once produced those results. Looking back from this point, it becomes clear that the results you've experienced were not coincidences or personal fate, but natural outputs of a specific mental structure. This recognition brings a distinct sense of mental clarity. With that clarity comes the understanding that the same cycle is no longer inevitable, because change does not begin through force, but through truly seeing where results are generated from. And once this seeing takes place, it continues to operate in the mind even after the video ends. If this narration has helped you see certain things more clearly, you can express that clarity with a like. Share what has become clearer for you in the comments so this awareness can stay alive together. And subscribe to the channel to continue exploring these kinds of readings of mental structures. Nothing here is about forcing change, only about creating space for what is seen. And once this seeing begins, it continues to unfold within your mind in its own natural way, even after the video has ended. Thank you for staying with this narration until the end. Your presence here and the time and attention you've chosen to give genuinely matter to me. I'm grateful that we were able to share this space together. Take good care of yourself, and thank you for being here.